Hello and welcome to the Stripping the Dipping podcast. You're joined by a very nervous Chelsea fan, aka AMG Denz, as we await the results of the North London derby. But never mind that. There are more pressing issues. There are better stories to be told. There are more interesting and amazing things we're going to cover on today's episode. So, it's very interesting for us to finally have someone, with a legal background, as well as someone that's an active motorsport racer and also part of a marshalling team as well. So I want all of our listeners to please engage and give it up for a very special guest. We're very honored today to have Magdalena King in the building. Mag, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys?
We're sensational. We're really, really happy. And again, like when Georgie told me about this episode a couple of weeks ago, I was like, yes, finally someone with a legal background that will understand the headaches of dealing with restrictive covenants, and dealing with solicitors' responses to inquiries and all the other stuff. I pull my hair out from 9 to 5, So it's great to kind of have that common ground as well, Magdalena, but also very awesome to have you as well. We've been doing some due diligence, of course, and you seem like a really interesting individual that we're going to uncover a lot more about, and of course cover your journey, from your legal background into your motor racing kind of exploits as well, and just generally kind of the world of motorsport through your perspective. So we're really excited. And how are you feeling for today's episode?
Yeah, I'm really excited as well to talk to you. That podcast sounds like a great idea to chat to people to share their stories. So I am really, really pleased that I can share my story with you.
Oh, we're honored. We're honestly honored, Magdalena. So let's get into it then. Usually when we have a guest on for the first time, the main thing we always try and ask them first is tell our listeners more about your earliest motorsport memories. Like, what were the key kind of bits of your childhood that got you into motor racing and following it? Were there any particular series that you really enjoyed? Have you been to all your earliest kind of like trackside memories at actual race itself? And who's your favorite driver growing up too? We'd love to get more insight into
that. So I think it all started when I was probably about 10 years old. My dad was watching Formula One, and I was always around Dad, watching TV with him. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it all started then, and I would watch all the races with him and sort of slowly get into it. He would explain the rules to me, and and since I first started watching Formula One, I was always a Ferrari girl, and I stayed there. So since I was 10 years old, I've always been a Ferrari supporter. So I don't think I've got a specific favorite one driver, but I'm definitely a team person.
We love that, and again, I think like Mag, you really encapsulated how a lot of us kind of feel as well when we watch Formula One. And even for myself, I can relate watching those red cars on the screen, whether it was Michael Schumacher, whether it was Kimi Raikkonen, just those memories coming through, of those prancing, red horses going through. And then on top of that as well, like I know that you say you don't follow a particular driver per se, but I mean, even just in the last 20 years, we've had so many different awesome drivers. And I know you also have like a Polish background as well. Could you talk to us about like how Robert Kubica was perceived kind of back home, and just how exciting it was to have a Polish driver on the grid,
Oh no, it was absolutely brilliant. So a lot of Polish media would focus on him. They still do. He brought in a big Polish sponsor, the oil company, into F1, and that sponsor is still with AlphaTauri right now. So yeah, it has. Since Robert joined F1, F1 became really big in Poland. So although I don't live there, I moved here when I was to the UK when I was 13 years old. But I do know that he sort of introduced Formula One to Poland. He's the reason why Formula One, special Formula One channels have been created. Like we've got Sky Sports F1, the special channels have been created in Poland. So this is, I think, having a driver from your country, it does brings that popularity. There you go, blooper popularity to that country. plop, plop, plop.
we love the plubs here. We do love the plubs, Magdalena. But yeah, just I agree with you. You know, and in terms of just how widespread like one individual sportsman can make a sport in a country, it's huge. You know, and you know we
Yeah.
talked about just like
If
you
we
know.
look at Ayrton Senna in Brazil, he was a national hero, wasn't he?
Absolutely, like, and to like even to this day, you know, I mean, it's really sad. I think recently it was I think that either the anniversary of his passing or his birthday, but either way, you know, people still recognize him as just, you know, one of the all-time great drivers. His bravery on the track, his ability to master the car and show really awesome car control in tricky conditions like that like I think opening lap at Donington Park as well says it all really. And yeah, I mean it's really cool just to see how sports in general can unite an entire country. And actually the first kind of fan question we'll get into, Magdalena, is if you had to choose between either Robert Kubica pre the rally crash getting a drive at Ferrari versus Daniel Ricciardo getting back in a Red Bull versus Max Verstappen. If you had to pick one of the two, which one would you choose?
I think I'll go for Kubica. Because the reason behind it is because he never really showed us his true potential. He was doing great. He had his first podium, his first win, and then he had that awful crash. So he never really showed us his potential. Where, I mean, I love Daniel Ricciardo, don't get me wrong, but he's already raced in Red Bull. So, yeah, he's back as a reserve driver. I do have mixed feelings about it, but I'm glad he's still in F1, although not full time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I would say Robert.
I think that's a great choice. And also in relation to the Ricciardo point, I agree. And a lot of us share your reservations as well, Magdalena, in terms of just like, you know, at one stage, he is just one of the hottest prospects. And he was probably one of the early guys challenging Lewis and Nico in the kind of dominant Mercedes phases where Red Bull gave the car to Daniel and he was challenging them. And then unfortunately, maybe through poor kind of career choices, making the move to Renault and then making the move subsequently to McLaren, and now as a third driver, it is kind of tough to see him like on the sidelines. But as you said as well, sometimes when you make your own decisions in life, you have to kind of like, you know, live by them. But who knows? Maybe there might be an opportunity one day, just depending on what happens with the whole contract and driver market, where we could potentially see him again in a competitive car. But also, I think I would definitely lean to more your answer as well, because Kubica was just such a raw like force and energy, and I just remember him in the BMW Sauber and just how impressive he was too, you know. And I really just liked his very humble nature, this is natural talent, and he really seems like a down-to-earth guy as well, which, you know, on this podcast we have a lot of time for the good guys, so that's great. Of course, it's definitely great.
But I agree with you. It would be good to see what he was made of, and unfortunately it was never the same for him after the accident. So, but he still does some rally racing, doesn't he? I think so. He's still involved in motorsport.
Exactly, which is really great to see, and I think it makes a good sporting story, you know, when somebody can go through a life-changing incident like that. And almost, I think it's like Alex Zanardi with the IndyCar crash, or, you know, other kind of sports people when they have those life-threatening injuries, how they still show that brute determination to kind of come back to a competitive environment and still, you know, whereas he might not be the same driver as he was previously, he would still wipe the floor with most of the people I sim race with online. So there's a huge respect for him. And, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, it's mind over matter. And if you really put your mind to achieving something, you can do it. So it's a great story for sure, you know. And Magdalena, talking about great stories, something I wanted to cover, and I think, again, we kind of like briefed on it earlier on as well, is, you know, your legal background, which is really fascinating because we don't often get someone with your kind of background on the show, which makes me really happy to see. But yeah, could you kind of like tell our listeners more about your kind of like educational and also your earlier kind of like career kind of path, you know, because you have your law degree, your bachelor's of law. You went into conveyancing as a case manager as well, which I can tell people it's extremely high pressure, you know, so huge respect to you there.
That's why I don't do it anymore.
I could imagine, and then obviously as well, time you've worked as like, a commercial manager for the civil services as well. Like it's so unique. So, could you kind of tell us more about what inspired you to go down that route as opposed to the motorsport route earlier? And, are there any kind of like, how you'd say maybe crossovers between the motorsport world and the legal industry?
So to answer the first question, why didn't I get into motorsport early? I remember when I was about 14 years old, I've tried some go-karting. And I think I was okay because I got some praise from the managers of the track. And they asked me to attend more just to try a little bit more. But it was expensive. It still is. And my family, they couldn't afford to pay for my go-karting career. So this is where it started and it ended within the same week, I would say. So I never got involved in motorsport before that because I didn't know I could. This is when my aim and my goal now is to show more women, younger women, that there is place for women in motorsport, not just as racing drivers, as marshals, as employees, mechanics. So this wasn't available when I was younger. This wasn't very, when you think motorsport, you think engineers, you think mechanics. So I thought, that's, not for me. Where now with social media and all the campaigns that Formula One and other series run, we know that it is more open and more available to minorities, women being minority in this case, because it is male-dominated sport. So this is why the reason I went into law is because there was nothing else I was good at, to be perfectly honest with you.
That's a bit harsh.
No, I'm like, I'm good at chatting and arguing. So I thought, I guess I can do law. So that's why I went to do law at university. And I quite enjoyed this. And yeah, so after graduating, I'm sure you know how hard it is to get an entry-level job, as a lot of employers want you to have some sort of experience. But as a fresh graduate, you don't have any experience. So my first graduate job was in conveyancing, and I've stayed there for about 3 years. And yeah, as you previously said, it was very stressful. It was client-facing job, which made me realize this is not what I want to do in life. Sometimes you have to try things to realize you don't want them or you don't like them. So yeah, I moved on and I joined civil service, where I use a lot of my legal background. I draft a lot of contracts. I deal with a lot of terms and conditions for it's basically a construction field. So yeah, I still use my legal background. I don't deal with private clients, which makes my life easier. And and I really enjoy it. So another question I think you asked me, crossover between legal and motorsport. I have not seen any, to be fair. It's I don't think I've seen anyone in my office, in my wider department, that gets involved in motorsport. But I think this is a hobby. Everyone loves different things, and this is what I loved all my life. So yeah, sorry about my dog.
It's okay. I have the same thing with my girlfriend's dog every day, so I know the feeling. But definitely, Magdalena, I agree with a lot of the things you mentioned there too. And as a law student myself, again, coming from like an underrepresented background, I definitely, everything you said, it almost felt as if I was the one saying it, because those are the thoughts I've had as well. In terms of, from a young age, I shared that kind of excitement, to get into racing and, to do stuff like that. Unfortunately, maybe due to the lack of representation at the time, my parents like, nah, motor racing, nah, I haven't seen anybody that looks like you doing that, Denz. Like, you'd be better off getting like a full-time job or like a profession where at least, you have more stability. And I guess
Yeah.
in a way, whilst, you know, you might say, well, oh, there's nothing else I was good at, which I felt was harsh, Magdalena. You should give yourself more credit. But like, I understand the sentiment of, you know, in the kind of world we live in the cost of living crisis we have as well, you know, it's important actually to have some form of professional job which, you know, can pay your bills, put food on
Yeah.
the table, look after the family and whatnot as well. But yeah, like, because of how things have evolved now in the modern day, it finally seems like a lot of doors are starting to open for once, that a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
kind of people that had narrow-minded kind of perspectives of who could be a successful motor racer, whether, you know, it's a woman, whether it's an ethnic minority person, whether it's somebody of a different sexual orientation, those conversations now are being had, and it's refreshing to hear that. And actually, I think a perfect segue to move on to then, Michael, would be Valkyrie Racing. You know, this is
Yeah.
really awesome. And when I saw, you know, the page, I actually started smiling because I was like, this is what we need. But, you know, for our listeners at home, Magdalena, could you explain, you know, just as the founder of the team, you know, what is Valkyrie Racing? Like, what is the backstory to it? You know, and in terms of just like, you know, female representation, where do you feel that the team fit into, you know, putting women, you know, in positions of power, but also women in motorsports as well?
So, well, it's quite an interesting story. On one of the track days, it was one of those track days that was female orientated. I never attended it, and obviously you talk to like-minded females, and we got on really well together. And we started talking, and yeah, we started attending more races together. We even went to Sweden to do some ice driving with some nice fancy cars on a frozen lake, just to learn that car control. And yeah, we grew to be really close friends, and we decided, right, what can we do with this? Our first, before Team Valkyrie started, we had our very first race was 24-hour race in C1 Championships, the race in Citroen C1 at Silverstone Circuit. So we've been looking for the team to do it with, and we were lucky to join Team Hard, who, well, it's a very popular team in British touring cars. This is where Nick Hamilton, Lewis's brother, races currently. So I had an opportunity to meet him. And yeah, so this was our very first race, 24 hours. There was 5 of us, and we did 2 hours stint rotation. So it's very demanding. And then after that, we thought, oh my God, this was absolutely amazing. Let's keep doing it. And we thought, how can we start our own brand to represent our own brand on social media? You know, on track, but having our own logo, colors. We thought it's very important to have your own brand, as you know, it is more noticeable, you know, your own name and you doing it alone. So in the end, there was 3 of us together. Having 3 girls together meant we could do more work. Some of us focused on social media, some of us focused on trying to approach potential sponsors. And yeah, we sat down. We've been trying to come up with an idea of a name, and Valkyrie was one of the girls, Amy. She came up with Valkyrie as she's a goddess of something. I can't remember. Basically, she flies over battlefields and collects the souls to send them to Valhalla. So yeah, we thought this sounds pretty cool, very Viking-ish. So we went for the name Valkyrie. We came up with some colors. We designed the car, and off we went to do a few more races in the C1 Championship together under Team Valkyrie. So yeah, this was well, still is a great journey to involve more girls in motorsport. Had absolutely brilliant support from all male and female fans who got behind us, shared our story, would come and see us race. The paddock was very supportive as well, the race officials. So yeah, I think once you're in the paddock with like-minded people, men and women, you can't feel the difference as much. Once you put the helmet on, you're just a racing driver. You're not male, female, or any other minority. You're just a racing driver. So you can feel that respect from most of the drivers, most of the teams. There is always a dodgy one somewhere that with some weird comments, but we try not to pay attention to those. So Team Valkyrie has been absolutely promoting women in motorsport. We had a lot of women contact us. We had a lot of girls and parents contact us and speak to us saying, how can my daughter get involved in motor racing? Which we think, even if we can help one person, one girl, women involved, that's our job done. Team Valkyrie has been absolutely brilliant at promoting females in motorsport.
It's such an amazing journey, Magdalena, and like you touched on a lot of important and kind of key focal points there as well. You know, in terms of like, well, one, having such an organic kind of like, you know, interaction with yourself and the other team members, which you guys go on to embark on this journey. And on top of that as well, just, you know, like taking the further step to talk about marketing and to make, you know, the brand distinguishable and something that is like not only just an image, but also like a movement, like, you know, an actual kind of like, you know, cause, which is really important. And like you mentioned as well, like it's reassuring to hear that the perspective amongst most people when you're on the circuit is neutral and one of respect, as it should be, because ultimately, like you mentioned as well, when you're on the circuit, the stopwatch doesn't take into account the person's looks or their gender or these factors, you know, and as Toto Wolff would say, the stopwatch never lies. But also on top of that as well, there's always still more work to do, and there's always still more people which, you know, they need that education, or they need, you know, for themselves to see it done to actually believe, you know, which shouldn't be the case, unfortunately, but in reality, it sometimes is. But it's so reassuring to hear that, you know, like we have younger kind of girls and their parents finding out more about, like, you know, what the team is, how to get involved, and to be part of such a movement. And to kind of link it in as well, you know, that question I'd want to ask as well, Magdalena, is like, you know, how would you take, or what's your take on the current situation with the F1 Academy that's kind of been a rebrand of the W Series? How have you also kind of seen like other teams that do something similar to you, like the Iron Dames that perform and drive in the GT3 or the World Endurance Championship for the FIA?
Yeah, so, well, starting with the Academy, F1 Academy, I've got quite mixed feelings about it myself, because W Series didn't work out. So here we've got another similar series which is not live on telly. So it's not promoted as much as W Series. So I find it very difficult to understand the reasons behind it. I think F1, a lot of racing series are still very political, and I think we're not at this stage yet where women can get involved in F1, as in to be involved in F1, you have to start young. You basically have to be delivering and getting results at 10 years old, right? Which means you normally start karting at 6 years old. So we're not at the stage yet to have a female ready to go into F1. I think maybe another 10 years we could talk about it again. But because we're now still promoting women going into racing, they're not going to be 50-50 or even, you know, half, less than half women going into racing. You know, let's say if you've got a championship when you've got, I don't know, 25 males and 5 women, you know, they would have to stand out massively to get that podium. You know, if you, you know, it is very, very difficult. It's a very tricky one, because even if you don't look at the gender, you have to be the best. You're not going to get a seat just because you're a woman, or and very often it's about money, but that will probably take us forever to talk about that. It's still the inequality because of the finance and budget. It is still big. To enter motorsport as a fresher, you need money. No one's going to sponsor you like that if you don't have any results. And so that means your parents have to have money, and it's an expensive sport. They have to have a lot of money. So this shuts the door to a lot of people. And it's a rich man's sport, if I can say that. Man being as a person. And then, what was the second one? The ladies in GT3. Oh, I think they're brilliant.
Mhm.
I think they're absolutely brilliant. I love how that they're achieving, they're winning, and it's. I think they're not as popular as they should be. I think they should have more airtime. I think they should be celebrated more because of what they achieve. They're not just there to represent women; they actually achieve. They're doing amazing things. They're not shy to use the color pink because it's obviously associated as being feminine. They're not shy. They put it out there, and I think that it's my dream to be like them one day. But I am older than them. I've only started racing last year, so I'm very new to motorsport. So I am aware of my abilities or inabilities, and I will probably never get to that level. However, the ladies are absolutely brilliant, and I just want to see more of them and teams like them achieving and doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. I think we echo your sentiments on that one as well, Magdalena, in terms of, seeing, women being able to be given like a fairer platform to at least, grow through the ranks and to challenge, all the other drivers on the grid as well. As for the point that you made with the Iron Dames as well, I agree with you. It's not just like them being on the grid just to fill numbers or to put bums on seats, as they say, but they actually are like really doing very competitively well. They are challenging, all the other teams which maybe have more experience, more resources, get more airtime, and that is like a rolling effect because of the commercial aspect of it as well. And still able to go toe to toe with them. So, in my opinion, they're like my idols, and I want to see kind of more of that progression in the sport, but not only just in kind of series, just like, the GT3, but hopefully one day, like you mentioned as well, F1. But I think a good segue to the next kind of question, Magdalena, is, finding the ways to fund it and finding the ways to go marketing. So we've got a really interesting topic, and I'm just gonna put a disclaimer out there as well because I know there are people that like to kind of run with the headlines. So Team Valkyrie Racing are not currently sponsored by OnlyFans. We have to get that out there first, but that is a really interesting partnership at one stage, Magdalene. Like, how did it come to that the team had this, like this deal or this like main title sponsorship with OnlyFans, which is a really niche and kind of new generation brand as such, and I'd be intrigued to know like how you turn something that is often like sexualized by men into something that was very productive, in terms of the behind the scenes and the content that you're creating kind of on that side of things.
Yeah, so this was it was a very random and quite interesting partnership. So what happened, OnlyFans sponsors quite a few racing drivers, and funny enough, they're all male. So OnlyFans at the time when we approached them, they I think they still do sponsor. I cannot tell you the name of the driver or the team, but it was a team in the British GTs. So very popular series. They their races are shown on Sky F1. So very big British racing series. And we spotted them and we thought, well, that's weird. Seeing OnlyFans on a car. So one of us, Shannon, actually messaged them and they replied to her pretty quickly saying, yeah, we'll be interested. Let's talk. And so, yeah, from there on, we've been having some chats. And yeah, they managed to, they sponsored us last year when we were in the C1 Championship. Unfortunately, we that partnership didn't last until this year. However, they still sponsor, and I believe they sponsor a motorbike racer. They sponsor a guy races on the same race weekend as me, because I've seen him on track and I had a chat with him. So yeah, they still sponsor quite a lot of them. men in this case. They have their accounts on OnlyFans, and they show behind the scenes of motor racing, which is what OnlyFans. It was the intention was to step away from the idea of sexualized content to private content of new things, like motorsport or other things. But I think the main the society's perception of the website is obviously still very sexual, if I can say that. But part of our contract with them, we had to have an account. I still have an account, and my account is purely motorsport. Some onboard videos, which although I'm not in partnership with them, I like to share that content to the rest of the world. The platform is popular in America, so I just like sharing my content with rest of the world. Which I don't mind doing that. I try to use all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I try to keep it more professional, but just to promote that, you today's day and age, you have to be out there to promote yourself, because, like you mentioned earlier about sponsorship, it is so hard to get sponsorship, especially for someone with no results, no motorsport background. It is so difficult to get money. This is why people don't follow their passions, because they cannot afford it. So you have to take any opportunity to promote yourself. You never know who's going to see your post. You never know who's going to like your car. So just you have to be in it to win it.
That's the greatest motto, Magdalena, and I agree. You know, I mean, again, it's important to kind of put your foot in the door, like you mentioned as well, to use these opportunities wisely. And I really, you know, I'm quite impressed with what you guys tried to achieve. On top of that, as well, the content that you still make for it. Because, for example, if someone's going on a track day and you know they need to get like on board of how to take corner 6 or 7 at Donington Park or Snetterton or Oulton Park or any of the parks we have in the UK, because you have a lot of them, and they have access to your channel, they can see the onboard and they can see that content. And it's not something which a lot of the teams, even GT3 teams at times, will make the public privy to, because of how competitive they are, because of certain things that they don't want their competitors to get the edge on. So I think it's really amazing stuff, and you add value to almost what you do as well, Magdalena. So I really respect it, and I'm sure as time goes by as well, people will get that understanding and that maturity, and also that kind of enthusiasm for an appreciation for the time that it goes to make the content, and to put it out and to kind of get that kind of engagement with it as well. So it's so key, and to touch more on the racing side of it as well, Magdalena, because we'd be condemned if we didn't. Could you tell us more about the series that the team are currently in at the moment? As in, like, what cars are allowed to be part of it? I noticed in some of the social media stuff that you posted, you had a very heavily modded Lotus Elise, which I've always liked the looks of those. They're so lightweight and nippy, and again, very short wheelbase as well. So they have a really great characteristic handling. But then also you have the Citroen C1, which again, if you're talking about relating motorsport to the average man that walks in the street, we can see people with C1s. Whereas on the other spectrum, it might be hard for us to get like a McLaren P1, or a Lamborghini Huracan GT3 and stuff like that as well. So how's that experience been in terms of learning the cars, in terms of driving them in the field? And just tell us more about the championship too, because a lot of our fans be willing to learn more about a different series, other than Formula One and the major ones.
Yeah, I think this is a UK club level racing. So there's a lot of clubs in the UK, very, very good clubs, and a lot of interesting races. So yeah, definitely worth having a look at them. But I will start with, so obviously my first race was in Citroen C1. As you can think, oh, it's just a road car. They are crazy. Those cars are crazy. They are not fancy McLarens. They're not fancy GT3 cars. However, I would say it's the best thing I've done to learn racecraft. in those cars. They're very difficult to drive. You don't have any support you get in a modern fancy sports car. Everything you do is just in your hands and feet. Therefore, this has been an absolutely brilliant experience for me to learn racecraft in the C1. And as you can think, they're not very fast. Therefore, it's all about the skill. Going from C1 to Lotus Elise, which I'm racing this year, yeah, definitely a bit of a difference. They are super light, they're super quick, and completely different to C1. But I don't want to say easier, because every racing is not easy, but they're easier to drive than the C1. You get more support from the car, as it's a sports car. You got extra power, for that extra control. So this year I'm racing Lotus Elise in 750 Motor Club, and the series is called Club Enduro. So this is endurance racing, and each race is around 2 hours. So I share the car with Amy Riley. So there's two of us split in halfway, so about 1 hour drive each, which is actually a lot. I've done 15 minutes in the car testing, and I was absolutely knackered, sweating, thirsty. It was actually crazy. So to keep going for an hour, it's a long time, and it gives you that appreciation of what drivers are doing in a hot climate as well. They race an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. It's crazy. It's unbelievable what racing drivers go through. Therefore, yeah, I definitely appreciate what others do. So the calendar consists of 6 UK races, around 2 hours each. And there's also Spa race in Belgium in July. However, we do not have enough funding to go there to send the team out to Belgium. It costs a lot of money to transfer everyone and the mechanics. So at the moment, we have sponsorship for half the season, and we're currently working on securing more sponsorship for the rest of the season. Our first race happened 2 weeks ago at Croft Circuit up in Yorkshire. The race didn't happen for us because our engine blew out during Friday practice session. So it was a quite painful experience. One of the cylinders cracked, caused a lot of smoke behind the car. I was actually in the car when it happened, so I had to return to the pit lane. And once the team checked the engine, that was game over for us. We didn't even make it to the race day. So that was quite sad. Our next race is on 14th of May at Anglesey Circuit in Wales, which is an absolutely beautiful circuit with a beautiful sea views. I have never raced there before, so I've got my sim in my room I'm practicing on. So it will be quite interesting to take my how to put this nicely, see what I can do in real life, because sim racing give you that kick and adrenaline that could happen in real life. So we will see what I can do. And then we've got another race at Bolton Park on the 3rd of June. And then on 13th of August, we're racing at Snetterton, which is closer to you. You could pop by.
Yeah, that would be a really awesome opportunity, Magdalena. And again, something that, I said to Jorgy at the beginning of the year as well. I myself need to get out and actually, witness more races and get that motorsport vibe as well. Because for me, I've only ever been like a TV watcher just from the days of sitting there and watching it with my dad. And I think you really gain a different atmosphere and a different adrenaline and a different energy when you actually go to the circuit and then you see the cars nearby, and then to be able to catch up with your team and yourself as well, and to follow the team throughout a race weekend as well would be really invaluable. So I'll definitely take you up on that opportunity. And also, thank you. And also, you mentioned like the other like hardships and challenges, in terms of funding, but then also some of the mechanical stuff that happens, which is completely out of your fault. Like, if the car has like a cracked cylinder and then there's engine failure. So the next kind of question I wanted to ask you, Mag, was, do you have any kind of pre-race rituals before a race event, or before you step into the car, any kind of funky superstitions? And on top of that as well, how do you build your resilience and confidence up? If something doesn't go as you expect it, or something doesn't go in your favor?
Yeah, I don't really have rituals. I just fist pump everyone. And I try to, just before I go in, I try not to talk to anybody, so my mind quiets down a little bit. I should probably try some ritual. Maybe that would make me a bit lucky. But no, at the moment, it's just fist pump with everyone. I make sure I don't drink water just before, because that could be fun. And then, and then I just go in the car, try to quiet down, and off I go. I talk to myself a lot during racing as well. I'm very chatty. I speak out loud, literally while the beach course. So that's going to be fun when the team radio comes on. And then, what was the other question? Resilience. Do you know what? It's very hard to answer this question for me, because I'm very hot-headed. When something happens, I swear a lot, but just to myself, just to let it out. And then I beat myself up. I'm not going to lie to you. I do beat myself up when something wrong goes on. If I spin or something, I beat myself up. But I try to refocus as soon as I can, because I know when I dwell on it for too long, I'm going to make another mistake. I try to move on and then worry about them later. So if I'm in the car, I spun, yes, for half a lap, I'm going to be swearing under my nose, under my breath. F this, F that. But then I'm like, come on, move on. Get your shit together, Magdalena. You don't want to make another mistake. And then I try to worry about it after the race, and I just sit there. Talking helps, talking to people. My teammate, I've got an absolutely amazing teammate. She's my rock. If something goes wrong for me, don't worry about it. Do this, do that. We compare data. So I think she is that for me. She's completely opposite. She's very calm. I'm hot-headed, so I think that's how we work. So my teammate is my big support.
Well, I mean, it's important to have that dynamic in the team as well, Magdalena, in terms of just, you mentioned you being the more honest and brutal one. And sometimes that's what's required, because you're like that because you want the best out of yourself. You're like that because you want to maximize the results, and, if you make like a tiny mistake, it can still have big ramifications. But like you also mentioned, like in situations like that, it's always best to just put to the back of the mind, and to just kind of deal with the reality as it's happening, rather than dwelling on something too long, and then you get hooked up on that and make more mistakes, and then it kind of like a snowballing effect, like you said. And also kind of like your teammate too, sometimes it's good to have that person that mellows you out, or kind of has that calming effect, that soothing effect as well, to kind of help with self-reflection. And of course, I think with any team, it's individuals coming together to better each other. And I feel that always the best and most successful teams, they're bringing their own unique things to the party, and like making a combination of really great things. So it's important, to have that balance, to have that understanding with other people. And even when things aren't going smoothly, I feel sometimes that's when we learn the most, because that's when we have to kind of sit back at the drawing board and then kind of go again. And that resilience, that confidence that you gain from that is so powerful. So definitely something I think that is quite important and overlooked as well.
Yeah, you definitely need a good dynamic with your team. Trust in your team manager, your mechanics. If you come in with an issue, everyone rolled their eyes. That's makes you feel disappointed. If you come in, something happened, they're like, don't worry about it, let's move on, you're okay, and being positive, that changes everything. So that dynamic within the team is very, very important.
Absolutely, so true. And well, we'll move on to a different topic, because again, this is Magdalena, you're like a jack of all trades. You literally touch every single element of the sport, and with this one, I think
I could chat forever. You need to shut me up.
No, but like this one's really interesting, because again, we haven't had somebody with this kind of experience before, and again, I feel it's one of those things where we see them on the TV. They do really, really like immense jobs of like, making sure the drivers are safe, making sure that the track is in a state where it can continue to be raced, looking after the other kind of like, like members of like the public as well. It's marshals, and you also have worked kind of in the Silverstone track as well, like as a race marshal and part of a marshalling club as well. To you, Magdalena, how important are marshals, and how can fans and sporting governing bodies show more appreciation to the incredible work they do?
Yeah, marshals are very important. So this year I started marshalling go-karts as well. So club racing go-karting. So actually marshalling, I call them the kids. There are some senior series as well, but a lot of them are children, which I find quite fascinating when I marshal kart races, because those kids are crazy, and that's mental. Okay, they're mental. But I'll touch on that a bit later. How important are marshals? They are. Without marshals, there'll be no motorsport. That's end off. You can't. There is only this much you can do from the control. Flash the lights for the flags. But when it comes to an incident, when it comes to debris on track, marshals risk their lives sometimes, especially in Formula One when they run on live track to retrieve something that's on the racing line. So yeah, they're absolutely really important. There's a lot of jobs marshals do that is not noticed, which is a lot of it is in the pit lane. I'm not talking F1 here, because F1 is like a different class of racing, but club racing and then any other UK racing, that you've got marshals that the speed limit in the pit lane. You've got marshals or the car's got correct stickers. It's that the driver that is in the car is actually the driver that should be in there. You've got scrutineers that make sure the car is safe and track worthy. You don't want to release the car that's will lose parts soon and hit someone else, cause an accident. So yeah, there's a lot of work going behind the scenes that you only see the incident marshals and you only see the flaggies, but there's so much work going behind the scenes, and there's so many people involved and flags. There's so much going on the radio that you also hear. So many decisions are being. Yeah, it's you always get the thanks to marshals, but oh yeah, definitely more could be done in at least in British motorsport to reward them for their efforts.
Absolutely, and it's so true as well, Magdalena. You touched on pretty much all the points I was thinking of in terms of just how dangerous it is in its nature, but then also people just think that it's limited to just them kind of picking debris off the circuit, and like you mentioned, it's so much more than that. There's the kind of scrutineering aspects of being a marshal in terms of like making sure the driver's in the right car. If it's a multi-class race, making sure that the right cars have the right stickers or tags or decals on them, and just that kind of like management of radio communication as well from race control, and being able to make split decisions which ultimately could save someone's life. So I really hope as well, not only just in F1 but also just in other motorsports, that marshals are continuing to be perpetuated as one of the more key people and kind of the most important roles within kind of motor racing. And absolutely, I think it's amazing when people can take that moment to just, give them their due, praise because of just the amount of sacrifice they make as well. So really impeccable. And also as well, like shout out to you, because again, we were talking about like giving back to the community, kind of like helping the next generation. And again, having more marshals at go-karting events, is the reason why the go-karting events can actually, like go on. Because I think a couple of years ago when I did like the British Rental Kart Championship, I got a very kind of late invitation to go. But even then, just like having the marshals there, them explaining the fire procedures, them explaining kind of like the competition, if like, you took a wrong car or, wanted to know what time you run for your different split, they were immensely helpful. For that, I'll always be grateful to them. So it is so kind of key, and I wish that they do more for them too.
Yeah, no, I enjoy marshalling. It's the closest you can get to racing. I when I'm at Silverstone or Donington, I sometimes do Donington because it's closest to me as well. I used to do incident, and now I do pit lane when I marshal cars. And I like doing the grid, so make sure the cars are in the right position before the start. So you can't get any closer. When you have to push the car because it's not exactly in its position. Touching the car, you're talking to drivers. You cannot get any closer to motor racing. And in go-karting, I started doing incident recently, but I mainly flag, which is very important as well. Those tracks are not big, they're not long, so everything has to be done very quickly. If there's an incident, it has to be dealt with instantly, especially given the age of the competitors. It has to be handled in a very sensitive way sometimes. So yeah, I would say it's well, my family doesn't understand why I do it, because motorsport marshals do not get paid, they're volunteers. Therefore my family doesn't understand why I'm doing it, but I love it. This is what I love to do in my spare time. This is definitely my hobby, and the motorsport family is like no other. This is where you see people from different backgrounds. You can see people, retired people, you can see people from legal background like me, you can see accountants, you can see lorry drivers, salespeople. In there, no one really asks, what do you do for a living? It's just, no one really asks that question. Everyone are like the same, which is absolutely brilliant, and I absolutely love it. It's one big family. You're supported by everyone. So yeah, I would recommend it to everyone. Membership with Motorsport UK is free, and then if you want to join whichever club, I'm personally a member of Silverstone Marshals team, but there's loads of other clubs you could join, British Marshals Group, etc., where membership is about £20 to £30 a year. And I would recommend it to every fan or enthusiast to go and do it. I mean, what have you got to lose? If you've got nothing, you'll get a buddy and they'll show you what's going on. So that's a really good way to get.
Oh, absolutely. And even for the introverts like myself, Magdalena, like it sounds like a good kind of entry level way into getting more involved, getting kind of more kind of like, meeting new people as well, kind of in the similar interests as well. And as you stressed as well, the importance of just like by marshalling what you enable kind of like the next kind of superstar karter that's doing their championship to have, purely because there's marshals there to actually marshal the event, and even in the higher tiers as well. So I couldn't commend you guys highly enough, and something definitely I'd implore our listeners to check out too. So very interesting, and then on topic of inspiring stories as well, I'm sure you touched on it earlier, but we can go in a bit more detail here with it as well. There's one Hamilton. It wasn't Lewis though. It was the other one, Nicholas.
Nick, yeah.
You had the opportunity to meet, as he's part of the British Touring Car Championship as well, and actually recently did a really mega job. I think he was in P17
or P7 or P6.
Yeah,
I can't-
and then got
Yeah.
to P6 and P7 as well, like you said. So
Yeah.
made so many positions. But again, Magdalena, tell us about that experience of meeting, Nicholas, and about his story too, because people award and praise Lewis, and so rightfully so he should. But Nicholas, with his like, how do I say it? Because I always try and say be positive, about these things, and rather than a disability, I would say it's a challenge, with the cerebral palsy and the things that affect him on the physical side. Like, like what was it like to kind of get his perspective and to meet him and to talk about stuff like that?
He was the most positive. It was absolutely brilliant to talk to him, talk about his challenges. Obviously, he talked about his journey. Like a few years back, he wasn't even able to walk. And now he's racing. His car is adapted. I had the opportunity to see his car. His car is specifically adapted to him. The pedals are adapted to his abilities. So he is an inspiring person. First thing I've noticed about him, he's like a copy of Lewis. The way he speaks, the way he moves, the way he smiles, it's like Lewis. And I found it really good when I was talking to him. I was like, this is creepy. But they are siblings, so half siblings. But he's so positive, and he from day one he said he wants to do it on his own. He doesn't use, he could easily ask Lewis for money to pay for racing, but he doesn't. He tries to find his own sponsors. He works really hard to find his own sponsors. Yeah, obviously he's got an advantage of having loads of Instagram followers, etc., etc. But to find sponsors for him who's not winning races, it's not easy, and he does it all by himself. Obviously his dad is helping with his marketing, etc. But it was really inspiring. His story was inspiring, and yeah, at the same time we had an opportunity to talk to another driver from touring cars who's also was racing for Team Hard, who had also another type of disability which was invisible, and you wouldn't even tell he had that disability. But he also shared the story of how difficult it was for him to race, how difficult due to his medical condition. But yeah, he's there. He managed to get there on his own due to hard work. So these two individuals, they are inspiration to younger generation. And again, for Nick, it's not just a minority, people of different color, but it's also that disability which we don't talk about in motorsport. We talk about male, female, color. We talk about religion. We talk about sexual orientation, but we don't talk disability. We think disabled people can't race, but they can. And another example is in the 24-hour race, we had two cars by Team Hard. One was girls' car, one was boys' car. And in the boys' car, there was another guy who was on a wheelchair. He was racing just, the other boys. So yeah, it's motorsport is more open. However, it has to be adapted to people with disabilities, especially medical and visible disabilities, because you cannot use I don't know, if you cannot use your wrist, if you cannot use your legs or your feet, then your team need to make some adaptations to the car. Therefore, it'd be very hard for someone like Nick to get to F1 because of the regulation, etc. So yeah, what he's doing and where he is right now, it's absolutely crazy, that especially with the result he had just the weekend just gone, well, before. So yeah, I think he's an inspiration to a lot of not just British people, but people around the world that might think, nah, I can't do this because of my disability. Yes, you can. You don't have to go to, big famous series. You could do anything. You can just go to your local go-kart track and give it a go, and see what you're made of.
Absolutely, there, Magdalena. And again, like you articulated those points so brilliantly in terms of, people might rule it out or kind of just say, "Oh, I'm not good enough," or I don't fit the mold, or I don't look like the guys kind of spraying the champagne on Sky Sports F1. But that's so not true. And like you mentioned as well, like someone like Nick with the perseverance and the kind of like mentality of no, like I can do this, I can be independent, I can try and kind of do it on my own, is super commendable. And I think it shows that, like you said, just like nothing's impossible, and that if you really want something and you really want to go after it, you can get it. And also, just even if you're not completely sold, like what's the worst in trying? What do you lose from having a try? So
yeah, you lose absolutely nothing. I am not the best racing driver. I am not nowhere near top 10. I am nowhere near top 20 out of 40 cars. I am more at the back. I am still learning, and it's all about trying. It's about putting this. It's about doing what you love, because the club racing in the UK. This is amateur racing. You don't get paid for this. You do it because you love it, and this is not high-end Formula One racing where you drive to survive. Basically, if you don't have results, you're out. This is you pay to race, and this is your hobby. So as long as you enjoy it, you don't want to you don't want to pay for something and stress over it, do you? You want to have a good time. You want to feel that speed. You want to feel that competition. You want to feel like you're doing something you love, and that is the main thing for for amateur level motor racing. This is something you love, and you're supposed to enjoy it.
Absolutely, and you've hit you hit it spot on as well, Magdalena, in terms of just just putting your best foot forward, and like not putting that pressure on yourself, and just embracing it and just taking everything as a life lesson rather than like a trial by fire, where if things don't go to plan, then it's not as bad as it is, as it people think it can be. So it's so true. Well, Magdalena, before we wrap the episode up, we've actually got 2 fan questions in, and they're more like, we call these our fantasy questions, because essentially,
I like that.
We're going to set the scene. We're going to give you like a kind of predicament, and you're going to have to kind of pick some drivers. So the first one is, Magdalena, I want you to imagine this. So, courtesy of, Team Valkyrie doing the amazing work they do, let's say, for example, Ferrari have said, you know what, we're so impressed with the work you're doing. We want you to, fly out to Miami. So you're flying out to Miami, and you're gonna have to pick a driver to pick you up from the airport, a driver to have a dinner with, and then one driver to avoid. Now, the drivers, they all have to be F1 drivers currently on the grid. So you have to pick one to pick you up, one to have dinner with, and one to avoid. So give us your list, Magdalena.
Different drivers, yeah?
Yeah, different drivers. So you can't pick the same driver twice.
Okay, so to pick me up, Carlos Sainz.
Ooh, the smooth operator. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good banter on the way back. That'll be good. Dinner. Oh, Charles Leclerc, 100%. If we could throw in like a marry as well, I'll marry him as
well. we could arrange it.
Yeah, that's all the way, Charles. I don't hate any drivers, so that would be quite hard to pick. There's no driver that I would avoid. Well, that's really hard, because
we knew we'd catch you, but you have to pick one, Magdalena. Come on, give us one.
I'm trying to think of the drivers now. So we've got 2 Red Bull, 2 Ferrari. I like both McLaren. What other teams we've got? AlphaTauri,
Alfa Romeo. We got AlphaTauri as well. I think we mentioned them.
Do you know what? But that's absolutely for no reason whatsoever. I would say Logan Sargent, but that's because
Fair.
he's Brent.
Yeah,
Because he's Brent.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't think anybody could. Yeah.
Him is just maybe I just didn't get to know him yet. There you go. There's nothing wrong with him. He's just brand new. So there you go. But I would, yeah. If I had to choose, I would just not avoid anyone because I like them all.
See, I see the politically correct answer there, Magdalena. Okay, we hear you. We're definitely going to see what we can do with our connections.
I would love to be around every single one of them. I'm sure every single one of them has got some great stories. So I wouldn't avoid them. I would be like, yeah.
We love that. And the next kind of fantasy question, Magdalena, is so, like Valkyrie Racing again, they're doing really well, they're succeeding, the brand is becoming huge. And like, a marketing company come up to you guys one day and say, Magdalena, like we want you to film a hot lap for us. You're gonna drive the car and you're gonna drive the circuit. What car would you pick to do the hot lap, and what circuit would you do the hot lap on if you could pick one of both?
Well, I would do it on Silverstone because I know Silverstone like my back garden. So I'm very familiar with Silverstone. So I will do Silverstone. And what car? Oh, you're asking difficult questions today. Oh.
It's the first one, Magdalena, so you had to go through the fire, but you've done extraordinarily well. So
the safety car, the F1 safety car, the Merc AMG.
That is quite beautiful. The Black Series AMG GT.
Yeah, that one. That car. I could tell you a Ferrari, but you'd ask me which one, and I would say all of them. So I would say the safety car. That's like every time I see it when it comes on track, I'm like, I want this, I need this. Like, that one.
It is a very pretty car, and it sounds amazing as well. When you have an AMG V8, they always sound spectacular. So no, I definitely second your choice on that one, Magdalena. And the final one is actually from the boss lady herself, Jorgina. As we're doing a bit of snooping, we realized, Mag, that you're into your Italian cuisine. So the controversial question is: pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
I knew as soon as you said controversial, I knew it. I'm a very easygoing person. So to me, I don't mind. I would eat it with or without. So it's a yes, I guess.
You're one of those, Mag. You're one of the. Jorgina's going to be in the background dancing now, so you made her day at least. Enjoying the clang.
I think I'm one to argue. If someone says, "Ugh, it doesn't belong there," I'm like, "Yeah, that's all right." But if it was in front of me, I would still eat it. So I just love pizza, so I would just eat any pizza. So, but I think recently I'm more Greek food than Italian. I'm changing to Greek.
I love some Greek food as well. Souvlaki, the wraps, the halloumi cheese.
Like I said to Georgie, I'm going to Cyprus in 2 days, so I'll have a lot of that there.
And you're not even taking us with you. We see how it is, Michael. Okay, all right. We'll remember this. I'm joking. But no.
Jump on the airline website and join me. We can do some go-kart racing.
That would be pretty fun out there. That'd be really cool, especially with the amazing like outdoor karting, maybe with the hot weather as well. It'd be sensational.
Yeah, and then hit the bar after. There you go.
Sounds like a plan. Well, Magdalena, it's been incredible to have you on this episode. Like, this has been one of my favorite recordings, hand down, since we started it. And just generally as well, you've got so much insight into the world of motorsport, and from a perspective of someone like myself as well. So it's so reassuring. But of course, Magdalena, please tell our listeners where they can find you as well, where they can find Team Valkyrie as well. And just, any final thoughts or, if you could give advice to the younger version of yourself, what would you say?
Younger version of me, I would say just go for it. Do what you want. Don't let anyone else tell you what to do. Just trust your trust your gut. Trust your gut. Gut is always right. And where to find us. I think the best place to find us is Instagram. My Instagram is Magdalena.6. So I share a lot of my racing content there. Team Valkyrie Racing, all one word, Valkyrie, and you can find the members of Team Valkyrie there as well in the bio. So you can click on our profile. So I think Instagram is the best place to reach out to us and just to follow not just my racing. I like to put my personal stuff, like my holiday pictures, and there's a lot of pictures of my dog because he's my dog is my world.
Oh, that is so adorable. And a lot of us have that same feeling as well. So,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that with us, Magdalena. Again, all our listeners, we implore you to obviously check out all the links and make sure you go and support Magdalena and her adventures, and obviously Team Valkyrie Racing as well. Georgina will put out a link as always. So, we can follow your progress and, be there to support as well. And Magdalena, we definitely need you on for episode 2 at some point of this season. There's so much more we could ask and more we can delve into, and kind of different aspects of my racing to speak about as well. But again, just a huge thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Yeah, we could arrange something after the season ends, towards the end of the year. So maybe I'll have some more gossip and more information to share from the Lotus race. So yeah, definitely would happy to join you again, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And we love gossip. So we're holding you to that as well for the end of this season. But of course, big shout out to Magdalena King for joining us on this episode. It's been your boy AMG Denz, aka Denzel Clark, aka the MDM, Monday Morgan Freeman with the smooth voice. Not as smooth as Carlos Sainz, apparently, but we'll work on that. And huge shout out to all our listeners, all of our supporters. Please make sure that you give thumbs up, you share, and you continue to support. And we'll be back again with another legendary episode. Until next time, peace.